Yeah, welcome. Zoom circle. Lois in Vermont and Eric in Atlanta, Tom in Minnesota, Nancy in Maryland, and Pam in Japan, and Lee in just north of San Francisco. So let's start with breathing, perhaps closing your eyes, sinking down, down, down. Noticing that your breath is coming and going to a place of stillness. Stillness that we share together through the earth. And coming on up and allowing yourself to open your eyes gently. And notice that I am gazing into the camera. So you can speak. We have 1 minute check-ins. And you check in into my eyes on the screen. Stay on the screen with my eyes. To check in, and I'll signal 15 seconds more or less. When you complete, we all say thank you with the name of the person. And when you're not speaking, or it's not your turn, in this first round, you can look at the person on the screen even though they're not looking at you. Or you could look at me and stay with my eyes and hear them through my eyes, whatever's comfortable for you to do with your eyes. So, who'd like to go first? Who'd like to check in first?
I will.
Thank you, Pam. So Pam, into my eyes, starting with a breath, starting now.
It's a beautiful new morning here with sunshine, a rare day in the middle of the rainy season. They say from tomorrow we're going to have another week of rain every day. So I'm really luxuriating in the sun this morning. Yeah, it really lifts my spirits. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Who's up to check in? Eric. Eric, into my eyes, starting with a breath. Starting now.
When you invited us to take a nice full breath at the beginning, I immediately went back to my first experience of speaking circles many years ago. It was a 2-day workshop, and the facilitator kept reminding us to take those breaths specifically at the beginning of the turn. And I've since found it so useful, certainly in speaking circles, to begin with that breath, because it really allows me to get present, to fully arrive, kind of get in touch with my body, my whole sense of being. So to me, it's the best way to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Who's up? Nancy, checking in to my eyes, starting with a breath. starting now.
I just realized that this is the first day in weeks, if not months, that I haven't gone out to the garden and weeded. We have something that appeared out here. It's called stiltweed, and it took over everything. And it's like surgery. I keep thinking precision surgery, that maybe this is what a surgeon's like, because I'm having to go, everything's like full grown. I'm having to go into between individual leaves and pull out this stuff. Fortunately, it comes out easy, but it's just insane. So I took a break today. This was non-stilt day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Lois, checking in to my eyes, starting with a breath, starting now.
Vermont is in glorious summer now. The grass is high. It reminds me of Oklahoma when the corn was as high as an elephant's eye. The grass is as high as my shoulder in the pasture. We've been in Vermont since March, the middle of March, when it was very, very wintry, very, very cold. And the first green was in the ditches along the road where water gathered. And somehow the leaves in those ditches kept growing, even though they were frozen many times. It snowed many, many times. It snowed in May. And now there's this incredible profusion of flowers and grasses and animals and bugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Tom, checking in to my eyes through my eyes on the screen, starting with a breath, starting now.
I'm grateful for the attention to breath. Attention to breath is part of every centering and grounding practice that I know. So in Minneapolis today, it's very warm for us. It's probably 91. And in the hour that I had before this call, I took a walk about a half mile to the farmer's market, the local one. It's very small. It's only a block. It's so quaint and cute. And it's in the middle of a quite busy part of our town. And glad to have the break to breathe a little bit of outdoor air, the hot, humid air. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you all for getting here into this shared stillness space. Now is our 6-minute turn. And we open our 6-minute turn with a few breaths. You could look around the room, take a breath. You can take a breath within yourself. A couple of breaths, whatever you need to get here. And then call a name of anybody else. Call a name as your first listener. And during these turns, when your name is called and you report to the camera lens, Maybe you move in an inch, you lighten up a little. And in some way, everyone can see a kind of a locking in that there's a connection here. So, and then you stay in the camera until that person calls another name. And again, when you're not in the camera and it's not your turn, feel free to look at the person whose turn it is, or to look at the person who's listening. So you could listen through their eyes and get their eyes. Or look around. Mrs. Robinson, and look around the grounds until you feel at home. Feel free to sing. So, 6 minutes with Pam, starting with breaths and calling a name. Starting now.
Lois. Just letting myself breathe into what I might want to say. Nancy. Thinking about one thing that is on my schedule for today. I was interviewed recently by someone about my work, Tom, and I received a transcript of the interview, and I received the interviewer's notes about various themes that she had picked up that appear to be important to me. Eric. And this afternoon, I'm just going to debrief this content with my best friend. And I'm kind of chuckling now because I haven't read it yet. I haven't looked at any of it yet. Lee. So that's my task for this morning, is to sit with this material, this whatever it was that came out of my mouth when I answered those questions. Nancy. And it occurs to me now that that interview was a lot like a speaking circle turn, a relational presence moment. Lois. I received the question, I breathed, and then I went with where the breath led me. Tom. So I'm imagining that I'll be pleasantly surprised when I read what it was that I actually said. And it was interesting to be interviewed. Lee. I've interviewed people before, but it was my first experience of being on the receiving end of questions and having my answers recorded. Eric. And the person who was interviewing me knew nothing about my work. So that was also quite interesting. There are some very fundamental questions that I no longer think to ask myself. But for her, it made good sense to ask them. Nancy. So I'm imagining when I look at the transcript, there are going to be lots of ellipses. In the moments when I was breathing and feeling into what is my response to this most fundamental question. It's so important, but how do I describe it? Lois. Yeah, so I'm having a sense right now that today could actually be a pretty big day for me. Some self-revelations are awaiting me within my own words. Eric. And then later in my conversation with my best friend, who has watched me grow into who I am now for the past 15 years or so. Lee. What's coming up for me now is a sense of like the tears are like right here, which is okay, but they're tears of gratefulness for this friend. Nancy. Yeah, one of the things she brings to conversations is this deep enthusiasm for whoever it is she's talking to. So she's just like, yes, yes, yes. She accepts you with every fiber of her being. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
I'll start the essence appreciations, a word or two about a quality, a positive quality of presence we appreciate. Nothing about content or process. And then Pam will repeat the appreciation. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Oh, luxurious spaciousness.
Luxurious spaciousness. Thank you.
You guys raise your hands and Pam will call on you.
Lois.
Exquisitely attuned.
Exquisitely attuned. Thank you. Tom.
Genuine openness.
Genuine openness. Thank you. Nancy.
Gentle breeze.
Gentle breeze. Thank you. Eric.
Breathtaking, expansive field.
Breathtaking, expansive field. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Did I miss anybody in those appreciations? No. Okay. Nancy, you were next, weren't you? Eric
No.
was next. How soon I forget. Eric, 6 minutes, starting with breaths and then calling your first listener to the listening post, starting now.
Lois, I love the aspect of speaking circles that allows me to be in silence, that encourages me to be there, not having to say anything if nothing feels called to be expressed verbally. And I also like knowing that nothing's expected of me from others. Tom, for most of my life, I would say 40 plus years, I was very quiet, very shy, withdrawn from people. And the primary reason for that is because I was afraid if I said anything that I would be judged by other people. So I was very self-conscious about myself and my self-worth. So Nancy, that kept me very much hidden, not just from other people, but from myself. This feeling of not being willing to speak, not wanting to say anything for fear of getting maybe rejected or disapproved in some way by others. And so that was hard, having to go 40 plus years of being that closed. And Pam, I've since come out of my shell, and yet sometimes when I'm closed or feeling silent, I'm not worried about it. I'm not judging myself over that. I actually like being in silence, especially with others who are comfortable in silence. And so I get pleasure from this space of simply being without words. It's a very rich, beautiful, powerful experience. And so Lee, it's nice to know that this is a really authentic way to be in the world. And that others who are able to see the value of silence and being in silence with each other makes this dynamic even more resonant. I'm going to be with myself for a few moments. I have a sense that you're all here with me at the same time, feeling you touching my soul. Nancy, how nice it is to know that I'm enough just the way I am, with or without words. Simply show up as myself in every moment and appreciate who I am. Appreciate what I have to offer. Appreciate my ability to be connected with others. Lois. There's so much that I could say, so much that I feel, that I think, and yet often I don't feel called to go in any one particular direction and simply just sit with a particular feeling or a particular thought without having to express it with another. Because when I am with that thought or feeling or experience, that's a pure sense of being without having to explain it. That's to me, as human as it gets, the sense of being with another, with so much happening within and around me. So Tom, I'm enjoying being with each one of you. Nothing to do. Simply be. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Eric.
Eric.
Eric, nourishing depth.
Nourishing depth. Thank you, Lee. Lois.
Riveting, flowing presence.
Riveting, flowing presence. Thank you, Lois. Nancy.
Spacious calm.
Spacious calm. Thank you, Nancy. Pam.
Warm glow.
Warm glow. Thank you, Pam. Tom.
Heartfelt authenticity.
Heartfelt authenticity. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Eric. Nancy, 6 minutes, starting with breaths, calling a name to the camera. Starting now.
Lois. For most of my life, I have a fairly recent, and that's that I like people. And I remember when I first discovered that and like first said it out loud, it was kind of like a shock to my system. Because I spent, well, now it would have been 3/4 of my life not knowing that. And Tom, because I thought what I loved was numbers. I loved numbers. I loved books. I loved nature. And Pam. And I was at a job that I felt was like really beneath me. And because I'd quit my career a number of years ago. So this was an hourly position. And I had all sorts of thoughts about it, Eric. But I was dealing with people, like lots of people, but not all at one time. It was perfect for me. It was one person at a time. And I discovered I loved, I loved that job. And then when I thought back, over the years and the things that I loved about my job or the various like career, Lee, was like the one-on-one, like people all at once was overwhelming, but one-on-one, I really loved people. And so this has come up recently because I was working with a coach and going over my vision, and she wanted me to come up with like in the relationship quadrant, Pam, and like what was I doing with friends? And I thought, I don't know. Oops, I'm not saying that anymore. Delete. I'm being very conscious of not saying, I don't know. So what I love is like kitchen table talks, like just sitting around the table. Well, I guess if they're just two of us sitting across from each other and talking, but talking about things that matter, you know, like not gossip, Tom, but just what I really love is like finding out like what's going on beneath the surface. Like I love movies with meaning. My husband always gets exasperated. You know, he wants to watch comedies and like lighthearted things. And it's like, no, let's watch something with meaning, Lois. And, but I love that. Having, like, sometimes I have an image of like me just, I don't know, Johnny Appleseed. Ooh, I said that again. Strike out. I don't know. Like going around the world and just sitting underneath a tree at a picnic table and getting to know somebody. I think that would be really cool. And Lee, it's like, it just, I love that idea so much of getting to know people like on a deeper level. And at least up until now, I haven't, that's not like, actually I take that back. Eric, do you ever find that you say something, but it's like until it comes out of your mouth, you realize that it's not true? Which is probably why it's a good idea to breathe before things come out of my mouth. Yeah, but it's cool. I love people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, luminous thoughtfulness.
Luminous thoughtfulness. Thank you, Lee. Eric.
Rich, delicious, nourishing stew.
Rich, delicious, nourishing stew. Thank you, Eric. Pam.
Exuberant blossoming.
Exuberant blossoming. Thank you, Pam. Tom.
Soothing and effervescent.
Soothing and effervescent. Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Mm.
Lois.
Warm, passionate, courageous.
Warm, passionate, courageous. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Mm. Lois. 6 minutes, starting with breaths and calling a name. Starting now.
Lee, I've been thinking about something that people have been saying. People have been saying that they are Zoom fatigued. This is becoming, Eric, a sort of commonplace comment. I'm thinking about my experience now. Here I am on Zoom, Nancy. I feel bright and alive. I don't feel any fatigue at all. I feel captivated, Tom, and riveted. I feel a connection with each one of you, Pam. Deep connection, and also curiosity, Lee. Nothing boring here. So interesting to hear about people being so tired because of Zoom. Eric, I'm enlivened. I'm energized. Nancy, I'm living on some special elixir. So actually, Tom, I think it's about discovery. That's one thing. Discovery. I don't know what I'm going to discover when I begin to talk. I just knew that I was interested in Zoom fatigue, Pam, because I thought, this isn't like Zoom fatigue. So what is this? How is this happening? Authenticity is riveting, Lee. There isn't anything like it. This is the kind of space, Eric, that encourages authenticity. There's an invitation, Nancy, to just show up and find out what is. Find out what wants to be said, what wants to be understood. Be person with broad strokes or with very fine detail. And be the same person, Pam, that I am, just doing myself differently on this particular turn. There's this invitation to just, I don't know what I want to say. Do I want to say deep dive, Lee? Deep dive, or fly high and then loop-de-loop and see how that is? What's in the loops? My capacity for connection, I am really aware of. I'm writing postcards, Nancy, at the moment, to people to alert them that they may have been taken off the voter rolls and they don't know it, Tom. I feel each one. And I think that's because I've gotten used to this space that's between us. Martin Buber would say, the I and thou relationship. I know there's a thou. I also know there's an I. It's so I've sort of got bifocals. I've got the awareness of my I, and I've got the awareness of your thou. I'm saying this as I'm looking at Lee. There's a thou there. And I can see so much in your face. Your face is alive and so interesting to me. All of your faces are alive and so interesting to me. I'm thinking about eyes and babies. I was with my friend's newborn baby. I was the first to hold her because my friend had a cesarean section. Within a few seconds, Tom, her eyes were with my eyes. Soft gaze with my eyes. Not even daring because it was so natural. She was just doing, it's like the sun. The effect of the sun on a plant, the plant turns to the sun, her eyes turn to my eyes. And there we were together, intimate, so sweet. And here I am with all your eyes, knowing the same kind of sweetness. Grown-ups lose this capacity, except sometimes when they're with babies, or except when there's an invitation from someone who doesn't mind being with eyes, who likes being with eyes in a soft way. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Lois. Elegant, eloquent grace.
Eloquent grace. Do you want elegant in there too?
Yeah,
Elegant? Okay. Elegant, eloquent grace.
they both work.
Thank you. Tom.
Poetic, inspiring, moving.
Poetic, inspiring, moving. Eric.
Vibrant, fully aligned vessel.
Vibrant, fully aligned vessel. Nancy.
Soothing wonder and delight.
Soothing wonder and delight. Pam.
Soft, silky beingness.
Soft, silky beingness.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Tom, 6 minutes, starting with breaths and calling a name to the camera. Starting now.
Pam, there is a communication technique that perhaps you have tried before. That is, as I hear someone, and my response may be, hearing you say that, what occurs for me is. And it's a combination of that I can show that I have heard that person, and that I move to speak from the listening. Me. And that is a form for me of generative listening. And I'm really feeling that in this group. When I hear you say that, what occurs for me is. Nancy. So what that also is for me is relational presence, that the connection, the presence is so clear that I have a resonance. So whatever I might have planned to say before my turn just kind of floated away somewhere. And so now I feel that I'm following the resonance in this room. To Lois, what I'm present to again is breath, the power, the soothing, the healing of breath, and attention to it. And Eric, some people connect to the sacred, whatever that definition is for that particular person, through nature or through prayer. Pam, my connection to sacred, the place where I feel that connection by far the most is with people. And Nancy, it's to have a conversation that is not expected, that comes from somewhere unknown, that is to be in the moment, a gift to the two people or more, 3, 4, 25 people. And Lee, in silence. I feel in this moment, Lois, that I have all these tools that I can draw on for presence. I can come to the room with a plan for what I'm going to say and know that I will receive attention, presence. For Nancy, I can come, and when I hear you say that, what occurs to me is, and I can also be silent, Eric. And using any of these forms of how to show up in the space, any of these communication options that are before me, the worry about speaking or speech just kind of floats away. Feel that I can simply be. I can be me. I can be playful. I can get serious. All the menu of options is pretty limitless. And I have this opportunity to come and speak into the listening. Lois, Zoom fatigue. I am going to talk about that all by myself, not because anyone else in the room talked about it. I spend hours every day on Zoom and rarely in a conversation or attentiveness like is occurring here in this room. I can call out the Zoom presentations that go on for way too long, that do not connect people together at all. And also, Pam, the many Zoom gatherings that are intentional and relational and creative and heartfelt. And we come together in a circle, a virtual circle, and something gets created in our time together. Nancy, as I come to close with one more breath in the space of the circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, expansive availability.
Expansive availability. Thank you. Lois.
Alchemist of the soul.
Alchemist of the soul. Thank you. Nancy.
Oh, no, I forgot. Embracing thoughtful wisdom.
Embracing thoughtful wisdom. Thank you. Pam.
Reveling in the moment.
Reveling in the moment. Thank you. Eric.
Gentle, graceful, guiding light.
gentle, graceful, guiding light. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Mm.
Oh boy, that's lovely. Thank you all for the listening, the appreciations, and the sharing. We have a closing turn, and the protocol for the closing turn is different. It's not about looking in the camera, calling names, although you might call a name, and if you do, we'll be there for you. But you could do this free range. You can look around the room. Sometimes perhaps you can speak to yourself. You might have some words for yourself. You might want to flow your words if you're speaking into the camera to practice talking through to a large audience through the camera. Anything that's useful to you as you close this experience, any way that comes through, words or not, songs or not. So the only protocol we stick to for sure is the breath. So closing with Pam, starting with a breath. Starting now.
I've learned that even looking into the camera, relational presence can be felt. And there's a place where looking into the camera somehow, as the person whose turn it is, somehow does feel more vulnerable than looking at the eyes of someone on the screen. Just noticing that now is what I've chosen to do, is be with you all through the camera, so that you all are looking at my eyes right now. I feel full, I feel enriched, I feel grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pam.
Pam.
Eric, closing up to 2 minutes, starting with a breath. Starting now.
I enjoy going around the circle, looking at each of you. It's fun to know that you don't know who I'm looking at. Only I do. I also enjoy looking into the camera lens. I get a sense that I'm with all of you at the same time. And you're all here with me. It's a very animate thing. It was not easy when I first started doing this. Felt a little bit clinical or technical. Now it's very much alive. It's as if I was speaking to a large audience, thousands of people on the other side of this. So I feel very connected at a very human level when I'm in the camera lens. It's a nice feeling to know that everyone's here with me and can see me. I like being seen. I like not having to see, yet feel connected to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Eric.
Thank you,
Thank
Eric.
you.
Thank you, Eric.
Nancy, starting with a breath. Starting now.
So there's a part of me that's like reaching out and hugging you. Speaking into the camera versus looking at you. I think I feel much more comfortable like seeing you. And loving you, and as I'm looking into the camera right now, yeah, so looking into the camera versus looking at individuals. I much rather look at individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Ah. Lois, closing, starting with a breath. Starting now.
I love the stillness. I love the stillness I can feel. I love knowing we all have that stillness. We all have that special place at the bottom of the breath, at the bottom of the exhale, where we can pause and feel our connection with ourselves and with others. So nature is speaking with me now, influencing me. There's a storm coming and it's suddenly gotten very dark where I am. Surprisingly dark, not usually like this time of day. I met a friend farmer on the road today. We were talking about, this is farm talk, how unpredictable the weather has been. Dry and then wet. And when will he decide to take in his hay? And this is how nature is, he says. You never know. We don't have that kind of control. Nature has her way. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Tom, closing, starting with a breath. Starting now.
As I begin a group, I typically have a couple minutes of introduction and then do some type of guided meditation for a couple minutes. And when people come out of that, I say, now look around and see who is here with you today. And look at each person taking a moment. And now I add, because I heard somebody else do this, and now look at everyone who is now looking at you. And it shifts the room a little bit, the virtual room, from looking at the Hollywood squares to knowing that each person in the Hollywood squares is now looking at you. And some people are surprised by that. Oh yeah, they're looking at me. And generally, it creates a little bit more connection, that we all know that we are together here and now in the virtual space, and we can connect one by one and feel the connection one by one. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
Oh, boy, that was so delicious. It gets my nervous system so soothed. I think that's really all this is really for. I don't know any other way to have that effect. I'm relaxing into this connectedness, into humanity. And this is the practice of relational presence. Present in relation, I don't want to say present in relationship, but present relationally. And I just noticed relationally, my name is at the end of that. The first time that hit me. And that is my contribution, my turn. Thank you all for being here all the way. And when you get the video, the link to this video, I hope you can enjoy maybe the whole show. I think this is a Netflix special, is what I think it would be. Or at least to watch your turns to see what we're seeing and why we're so fascinated by you. So we have a traditional group hug goodbye, if you're willing to join me. I like to say kiss is optional.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Thank you for this.
Bye-bye.
Yes.